My name is Mylena Sutton, and I am the Principal Consultant for Voltage Vista, an HR and leadership development consulting practice that focuses on partnering with leaders like you who need to get their teams aligned. Much of the work that I do centers around conflict and uncomfortable conversations. And I've come to appreciate that because I see those as necessary and normal elements of the workplace. However, over the years that I've worked with the various teams and groups that I've had the opportunity to work with, I've seen very few of them truly embrace conflict. And that is true of leaders as well. Perhaps I find conflict a little bit easier to manage because I simply see it as unavoidable and like taking necessary medication. You take the medicine, you get better. You deal with the conflict, your team gets better. Yes, conflict does make us uncomfortable. However, when it is well managed, it yields the safety and trust necessary to have effective teams. As you build your conflict management philosophy, I believe it should include the following 3 elements. First, you have to be willing to let them fight. Yes, this means that you must be a deft referee as a leader, but you have to let them fight because conflict breeds integrity. There is an expression that says, a drunk man speaks a sober man's mind. And the same is true of conflict and anger. There's a certain honesty that comes from conflict that breeds authenticity in relationships. And you need those components for relationships to be strong and for them to be deemed trustworthy. And what is it to work with a team if it is not to work through a group of relationships? Furthermore, when people work together and they are unable to be sure that the teammates that they work with are giving them true and honest feedback, they learn to censor themselves. They learn to dial themselves back a bit. And they also learn to take fewer risks because they aren't sure that when they offer the risky idea that has potential, that they will get the feedback that they need to turn it into a great idea that will actually work. But here's what they also do. They also start to turn to hush-hush meetings and to gossip to get the truth. And that is particularly divisive because it takes up a lot of time. It all but guarantees that there won't be sufficient buy-in, and it also breeds distrust. So let them fight. But if you do, you certainly have to include that's the second element. And that is a series of norms to increase emotional and psychological safety on your team. It is the adult and workplace version of hug your sister. For those of you who didn't have siblings, that's what our parents said to us after we got done fighting with our siblings. Whether you are a parent or a leader, you must be intentional about creating norms and mechanisms on your team so that your teammates don't hold grudges, so that they work together despite conflict, so that they learn that they can work through conflict. You want to encourage them to continue to talk openly about challenges and issues. It is the openness that is your hedge against gossip and divisiveness and a source of psychological safety. You want to check in on that teammate, that individual who took the risk of being honest to make sure that they are okay, to make sure that they are not experiencing retaliation. You are essentially building into your team norms that keep the aisles and the lanes of communication open. You want your norms to motivate people to speak up. And the third element that your conflict management philosophy must have is a commitment to self-awareness for yourself. You need to know what your conflict style is relative to conflict in general and what your issues and concerns are about specific conflicts that confront your team. Many of us deal with conflict reflexively. We do so without thinking, whether that turns into locking horns, avoiding, or something else. But when we don't pay attention to ourselves, when we don't know how we reflexively deal with conflict, what our default reaction styles are, we are less likely to be able to decipher our impact on the team. We are also less likely to be able to see when we are wrong and when we need help. Furthermore, When difficult decisions must be made, you cannot underestimate the power of your power on the team. And this becomes particularly problematic when there is a difficult decision that needs to be made that also comes with conflict. Frankly, many of your employees will feign alignment because they are afraid of conflict as well as your authority. However, disingenuous buy-in always shows itself. Ultimately, you need the truth, and the people on your team need the truth. Your growth and your reputation, your strength, your capability as a leader is in part based on your ability to create safety and trust. And conflict management is part of that. Okay.